and welcome to another edition of the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. I'm your host, Jeff Gorham, and we had another great week last week as we saw our RCC Tigers go down to defeat to Golden West. And I'll tell you what, a very, very tough week for Riverside football. But we have another one coming up, and it's going to be a great week. We have a doubleheader on Friday night, and we're joined by my partner in the booth, my dear friend, Ghazal Hassan. How you doing, Ghazal?
It's league play, my friend. We're finally rolling into league play. A lot of teams had last weekend off, and it's going to start in earnest on Friday night for the River Valley League in particular. But all the teams across Riverside are going to jump into some league play.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to have Poly Citrus Hill on Friday night, and also on Friday night, the same bat time, same bat channel, we're going to have Hillcrest versus Patriot. Let's talk about that first game, Hillcrest versus Patriot. You and I, what are your thoughts, first of all, when you hear about these two teams starting in the River Valley League?
Well, we saw Hillcrest early, in the year. We saw them in the opener against Poly, and they played pretty well. It was just a couple of little mistakes, and Poly was able to take advantage, and they won that one 23-17. They're able to run the ball on Hillcrest. It'll be a little bit different, because they got their big defensive tackle, Malu Tata, who didn't play in the first game. He's back, he's marauding. They thought about maybe playing him both ways, but I talked to Coach Travis Carter this morning, and he is going to exclusively play defense. They're pretty happy with how their line has progressed, so they're going to let him just go hunt on defense, which will be big because Patriot likes to run the footballs. That'll be a good matchup there. But, Travis Carter was very honest with us. He said, I like this team. I like their attitude. I like their work ethic. I like their talent. But we're just young. And, they had that Frostoff team in the spring go 5-0, and they elevated a lot of those guys. And remember, we did a couple games of his in the spring, and in the spring, they had a big senior class. So they were trying to make that spring really about that senior class because they lost the season in the fall. And now a lot of these guys, even the juniors and seniors who are playing for Coach Travis Carter, maybe they're juniors and seniors by class, but they haven't had the reps maybe. So now is the time, right? It's league schedule. There are no excuses anymore. And I have a feeling that Hillcrest is going to be pretty competitive in that River Valley League. And you know what? I wouldn't be shocked if Patriot surprised some people. I had a nice talk with Chris Fowler a little bit earlier this afternoon. And, kind of the same deal. They're just trying to correct some mistakes. There may be a mistake or two from being 3-2 and 4 or 4-1.
Yeah, and looking at the River Valley League, you have Ramona who's playing great. They had another win against another Big 8 opponent. They're putting up some points on the board. They're averaging 40-plus points a game. I know they have Norte Vista in their sights, but let's talk about Norte Vista. Norte Vista this past week played Redlands to a 21-0 win. But I'll tell you what, offensively, the Braves didn't look like they were full or they weren't going on all systems. Defensively, they look solid, but they are having some issues on the offensive side of the football.
And we talk about this all the time. Norte Vista is one of those teams that is easy to scout, and they're hard to play against. And you were right. I watched a little bit of the matchup with Redlands, and they were a little lackluster. But, Jeff, they still got the win. And that's the whole thing when your MO is, hey, just look at the guy in front of you and knock the snot out of him. Even if you're a little bit off, it's still effective, and maybe they're not getting the electric runs from, Eddie Elaine they were getting earlier in the season, but, Carvajal's doing a good job running behind those guys. When they get in the red zone, they're able to punch it in. I know Coach Batdorf, meaning who's a little bit perturbed about some of the inefficiency, but Jeff, their defense played well. And if that's what they do, they're going to run the ball. They're going to play defense. Does it matter if you win 14-7 or will you win 35-7? No, all it matters. They won 21-7. All that matters is you win, and the defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. Even the game we saw, the offense didn't play well, but the defense played well enough to get them a win. I think it was 7-0 against Claremont.
Yeah, and talking about that defense, the defense is really, really good. Andy Martinez does a great job as a defensive coordinator. But let's talk about that Ramona offensive line. And I think that's been the biggest surprise of any team this year is how big and how strong that offensive line has been for Ramona. And they've kept their quarterback, and he's been able to throw the ball all over the place. That could be an issue. I think I'm looking forward to that Norte Vista defense versus that Ramona offensive line. What do you think about that?
Well, and this applies to Hillcrest too, right? Caleb Dominguez has kind of come of age. I was talking to Coach Carter, and I said, hey, you must have some confidence in him because you're having him throw the ball 20 times a game. He's thrown the ball more than 20 times twice over the last 3 games for Hillcrest. So that's big on the Hillcrest side. But yeah, and I was chatting with Coach Fowler of Patriot, and the one we were talking about, he's a big fan of Coach Mush. He loves Coach Mush. And we were talking about Ramona. He said, man, I saw Coach Mashinsky at a JV game. We were chatting, and I was marveling at how big his guys were, offensive linemen, meaning he had some big guys, which they hadn't had in past years. So the Ramona we've seen, Jeff, the last 4 or 5 years, they're always tough. They're always smart. They're always scrappy. And now, at least on the offensive line, they're really, really big, and they got Bo Bruins to run behind those big boys up front, and they can throw the ball. So that's really the wrinkle, I think. To me, if you're going to upend it, because, the league runs through Novi, right?
Of course.
Hillcrest can do it, and Ramona can do it because they can throw the ball. Patriot, I was talking to Coach Fowler, and they want to be able to throw the ball. But remember, their quarterback is a young guy. He's a sophomore. He's going to be very, very good. But they have a good running game, so they're kind of maybe trying to spoon feed him a little bit. But to beat Norte Vista, you have to make a play down the field. That's how you beat Novi. That's how we saw teams beat Novi. And now, all of a sudden, I'll reserve opinion on Patriot because we haven't seen them live yet. Hey, we've seen Ramona, Jeff. We've seen Hillcrest. They can both make plays down the field. Both those quarterbacks can make plays down the field when those offensive lines are healthy. I mean, Ramona in particular, they're just massive up front all of a sudden.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive. And the River Valley League this season is going to be great all the way down to probably the last game of the year.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about this. I think the River Valley League is about as good as it's been since we've covered it.
Oh, definitely so. And let's talk a little bit about our second game. Riverside Poly, Coach Rice is a little under the weather, missed the last game, he's going to miss this week. They've had some growing pains. We saw them early in the year. They looked very organized, very good, but they've had a couple missteps. That's what you're going to get from a young team, and luckily they're playing a team in Citrus Hill that is winless. They haven't put up a lot of points. I think they're only averaging 3 points a game. This could be a good game for the Bears this week.
The tough thing about this, so you're an old coach, so fill me in on this, right? Every coach wants to get off to a good start, but the problem with getting off to a good start is now you have to sustain that start, And that to me was the issue with Poly, was that Poly had success early, and they weren't able to sustain the success, which kind of leads me to believe that maybe, and I could be wrong, maybe the issue is that group, and some of them are very young, you're right. Maybe they weren't ready for that success at the time. I think you can kind of write off a couple of those games for Poly, but I think last week is the tough one. Last week was the one that you wanted to be able to kind of right the ship. You're heading into the league calendar, and it just didn't happen. Now, coach wasn't there, so maybe that's part of it. But this is a big one. You just kind of, it's a team that you probably should beat. No disrespect to Citrus Hill, they're missing some players, they're missing some personnel, and they're down. So you just take care of business. You check off the win column. Now you're 3-3, and you go back to the drawing board if you're Poly, because we've seen them. We know what they're going to do. You're going to have Bill Powell in a little bit. I mean, they're going to run the ball. And they've been able to throw the ball. Michael Luna is not a bad quarterback throwing the football, but their bread and butter is stop the run and run the football behind that offensive line. And they got more physical up front as well, and it worked out the first couple of weeks. They haven't been able to sustain it. Let's get back to fundamentals this week. Let's get back to blocking and tackling, and let's make it an ugly game. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Let's run for a couple of 100 yards and put the check mark in the win column, and then move on from there.
Well, Gazal, we have 2 great games this week. You're going to be on one call. I'll be on another. I'm going to be a little sad not to be with you this week, but we'll come back together next week. We'll redo it again.
I'm going to miss you.
I'm going to miss you.
you.
But hey, before we go, the Tigers went to defeat to Golden West. You and I called the game 2 years ago, and there was a revenge game, wasn't it?
We were talking before we went on the air. I have a feeling that Golden West was checking this off for the last 2 years, because RCC really put it on them when the game we did a couple of years ago. It was just, remember they turned the ball over 4 times, and then Golden West wasn't able to capitalize, and then they just opened up their can, and they were running all over Golden West. So it's unfortunate. Maybe this is the reset that Coach Kraft needs, coming off that championship. They were ranked number one in all the polls, and it was probably a lot of bulletin board material. But, you give credit to the guys at Golden West. They do a good job over there. I've always, we talked with their coaching staff a couple of years ago, a good bunch of guys, good bunch of kids over there, and congratulate them on the win. But, the Tigers will be back. Don't you worry. I feel bad for who they're going to play. I think they're playing Palomar this week. I feel sorry. I feel bad for them. Maybe not Palomar. Whoever they're playing this week, I kind of feel a little bad for, because that all week Coach Kraft is going to have them ready to go.
Yeah, in fact, the irony, I guess the irony is the quarterback was Retzloff, who was the quarterback at Centennial, and he comes back to Riverside. I was hoping his brother was going to get to play, but his brother's out for the season, so we didn't have a brother-on-brother matchup.
Oh.
But it was still nice to see Retzloff have a good game, even though it was against RCC. Good to see a local guy doing well.
But didn't Ricardo Chavez set a record?
Yes, he did. He kicked another 56. I think it was a 56-yarder. I'm telling you, he's going to get 65 this year. He cleared it easily. He's my rock star. He's my favorite player right now in football. My man Chavez over at RCC.
You're going to have to call Frank Corral and have him come out to a game, and then you get a picture of the both of them.
That would be great. In fact, we interviewed Frank Corral during the Norte Vista game versus Redlands, sat down with him for during halftime, and I asked Frank, I said, Frank, if the Rams called you up today, could you still kick a field goal? And he's like, I'm in, Coach. Well, Gazal, it's always great to see you. We're going to see you Friday night, 7 p.m. on Riverside TV. And we will see you next week on The Coach's Perspective. He's Gazal Hassan. I'm Jeff Gorham. We'll be right back with Coach Powell from Riverside Poly. And welcome back to The Coach's Perspective. As now we are joined by the assistant head coach of Riverside Poly, Bill Powell. How you doing, Coach?
Jeff, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm great. I can't complain. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's happy in my family, and the city of Riverside is happy because we're in the middle of the football season. You guys getting ready to start league this week, Coach?
Yeah, we cross over with the Mountain Pass League, and it's our crossover game with the Mountain Pass team, Citrus Hills. So actually, everybody else in our league will play a league opponent. We got the lucky draw and got the first crossover game, so we finished with 4 league games. So we were fortunate to be able to get that. It might change next year, but yeah, looking forward to it. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, and we're excited about it. Had good work yesterday, so we're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, let's talk about those last couple of weeks. We saw you the first game of the year. You guys, Coach, you guys are everybody's bought in. The players are in. But you've had some hiccups the last couple of games, and not really by choice. These are things that kind of life throws at you, and you guys are dealing with a little bit of adversity right now.
Yeah, we are, and John's, Coach Rice, his whole mantra has been, next man up. And we have had to deal with a lot of injuries and a lot of different other situations that are going on. And it's afforded the opportunity for a lot of different kids to get an opportunity and play. But, we a lot of the kids that were, on the field for us the first couple games have not been able to be with us for the last couple. So on one hand, a lot of kids are getting a lot of experience. Played a ton of young kids the last 2 weeks, and especially last week. So, slowly but surely, we're hoping to get some of those guys back and get this thing squared away and turned around.
Well, Coach, you do mention a lot of those young kids. Can you kind of, since they haven't been on TV, we haven't seen you the last couple of games, tell us a little bit about some of the surprises of those young kids, some of the guys on your roster.
Well, one kid that really last Friday night in particular stepped up is one of our defensive linemen, Keaton Stokely. He played fantastic. Tajon Henderson is starting to really come into his own and becoming a factor on offense when we have the ball. He's a sophomore. Who we always thought was really, really talented. And, he's finally getting his feet underneath him at the varsity level. He played outstanding the other night. But it's just everywhere you look, we got young kids filling in and playing, lineman kids that on Wednesday were, getting reps to try to get them ready to play. But those two, if I had to pick just 2 of the younger kids that have really stood out to this point, it would be those 2. And another kid that played great the other night is a kid named Julius Castro. He had to play tight end. He hadn't played all year, really hadn't played much. He did a great job. He played both ways. So a lot of kids stepping up, doing a great job. We were talking before we came on. I've been doing this a long time, and I was so proud of the effort and performance of our team last week because not many people gave us much of a chance. And to be really competitive with the chance to win the game with less than a couple minutes left, I was super proud of our guys.
Well, I can say this. I worked the Riverside City College game this past weekend, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, when are you going to cover a Poly game?" I said, "We're going to cover it next week." And he said, "You guys, the guts that you guys showed on Friday night." And he said his grandson played on the team. I forget his name, but he said the kids are all in at Riverside Poly, and they really seemed to rally around that game Friday night. You didn't win, but obviously it stuck in the minds of grandparents and their grandson, who obviously is a member of your program and is really all in.
Yeah, no, like I said, I was super proud of them. The kids, John is trying to build a culture and is building a culture where that's the mantra that, it's next man up, whether it be kids, whether it be coaches. And they really wanted to win that game for him. But like I said, we came up a little bit short, but as far as the effort and just the way they approached it, I kind of challenged them before the game, and I said, let's control the controllables, which is our effort. And, be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of this thing and know that you gave everything that you have. And I can say to a man that they did that. And, if we can get that out of young people nowadays, I think that's big. So super proud of them. It carried over to yesterday. We had good work yesterday, good attitude. Kids were flying around, and we're looking forward to having some good work the rest of the week and getting ready.
Now, turning the page to Citrus Hill. Citrus Hill, notoriously one of the best teams, in Southern California for nearly 2 decades. They're a little down this year, but what do you see in this Citrus Hill team that concerns you a little bit?
Well, the first thing you talked about already is their tradition and their culture. Mike Herring is a good friend of mine. I've known a long time. Obviously, when I was the head coach at San Jacinto, played Citrus every year. So trust me, I know how good Citrus was over the years. So that's one thing that they do have. They got a late start with Coach McMain's moving on. So, they're slowly but surely trying to find, their own identity and what they're trying to do. And their kids play hard. And it's really both teams on Friday just trying to right the ship and get this thing going in the right direction. So we fully expect them to play super hard, and we're going to have to be ready to go. And like I said, it's Citrus Hill, and they have a lot of tradition there, and the kids have a lot of pride in that football program. So I know they're going to show up and play hard and play well, and Mike will do a good job with those kids.
Yeah, Mike Herring has coached everything. His 2 sons were amazing athletes at Citrus Hill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's going to be a tough task for you guys playing, a team that we've heard about for so long as you hit into this crossover into your league. But let's talk a little bit about your league. Who's next after Citrus Hill, and who are the guys that you're looking at team-wise? What teams are really tough in your division?
Well, we open up our league play next week with Canyon Springs, and they're much improved. They've got new coaching staff, and I believe they won 3 or 4 ball games already, which is they've got that thing going in the right direction. You talk about Vista Del Lago and the job that they've been doing over there, and of course Ted over at Moreno Valley, long time coach who does a great job at Moreno Valley, and also Lakeside, much improved too. So every team in our league is improved. And then you've got the traditional Moreno Valley school who has been good for a long, long time. And just the leaps and bounds that Vista Del Lago has made in the last couple of years. So it's going to be really, really competitive and really, really tough. James Seiler over at Lakeside doing a great job. You can guarantee you better strap your helmet on tight when you play those kids because they're going to bring it and play tough. So it's going to be a competitive league situation, but we're looking forward to it. Like I said, hopefully we get some kids back and we get back to full strength. And I think that when we're able to do that, we're going to be right there in consideration for the playoffs. So we feel like that. The kids feel like that. And that's going to be our goal.
Well, we are going to be covering you a few more times on Riverside TV this season. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Coach. Always wish the Bears well. But before we go, I know that you and Coach Rice run the Football Federation. Maybe can you touch base with us and tell us how
Sure.
people can get involved, maybe donate to your cause, and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're involved in the National Football Foundation, which is based out of Dallas, Texas. It's a national organization, and we represent the Riverside County chapter. John and I are the president and vice president of that organization, and typically every year we hold a really nice banquet. We've been holding it at the Saboba Event Center, Saboba Casino, recognizing 20 to 25 of the top seniors in Riverside County based off their athletic performance and their academics and community service. So those things are going to be going out here pretty quickly as we round up this football season. So if anybody's interested in that, they certainly can contact either myself or John Rice at Riverside Poly High School if they want to get involved, or if they would like to donate. It's a great cause. It's a great event. We're looking forward to being able to put it back on this year, hopefully, and it's going to be in the springtime of 2022 in March. So thank you for that little bit right there. It's a great organization, and it really just celebrates the success of kids, not just as football players, but just academically and what they do in their community and everything. So, yeah, anybody who wants to participate can reach out to us, and I'll be more than happy to call them back.
Well, Coach, thank you for your time, and I always support everything you do. I think you and Coach Rice are solid class guys, and looking forward to the game Friday night as you guys are going to battle Citrus Hill.
Yeah, we're looking forward to. I look forward to seeing you guys. It's always fun, and thank you again for having me on. And let's go Bears.
He is associate head coach Bill Powell. Out of Riverside Poly. We will see them Friday night as they battle Citrus Hill. We're going to be right back with the head coach at Hillcrest, Travis Carter, on the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. And welcome back to the Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. We are now joined by the head coach of Hillcrest, the Trojans, Travis Carter. How you doing, Coach?
Doing good, Jeff. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Every time I say Coach Carter, I think of the TV show, and I picture you just yelling and screaming at guys and running them. Are you anything like Coach Carter?
No, I'm nothing like the real Coach Carter. No, I'm nothing like him. But I did have a college teammate that played basketball for him, for the
Really?
real Coach Carter.
Wow.
Yeah, so kind of interesting story. He said he's pretty incredible guy.
So we have 6 degrees of separation between Coach Carter and Coach Carter. So it's actually 2 degrees of the real Coach Carter and Travis Carter right there. How you doing? Now, how you doing right now? I mean, you guys are getting ready to start the River Valley League. You got to be pretty stoked. I mean, what's the preseason? First of all, what's the preseason been like for you and the Trojans?
So, yeah, we're definitely excited to get league play going. Kind of had an up and down preseason. A couple games where I thought we played pretty well. Other games where we, didn't put 4 quarters together, maybe played well at times, but not good enough. So kind of a rough preseason coming in 2-3. But like I told the kids yesterday, once league starts, it's kind of back to 0-0. And all that stuff from earlier doesn't matter. We just got to kind of learn from it and get better. And that's where we're at right now.
Well, you guys are the defending River Valley League champs. You lost a lot of guys from that team last year. You were a senior-laden team. You're a pretty young team this year. Has these early games really helped those young guys propel to become better players? Have you seen a big growth with certain guys on your team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they got half a season under their belt anymore, so the excuse of us being young, it's not going to be something we're going to use. But yeah, we've seen kids, and kind of collectively as a team, we've gotten better week to week. Kind of didn't play well last week against, a really good team, and we got exposed because of it. So, we had a good bye week, good practice yesterday for a Monday, which kind of rare for us. So we're excited about this week, going against a pretty tough Patriot team.
Yeah, in fact, we're talking about, let's go back a couple weeks when you played a Big 8 Corona. I had people texting me while I was on air calling my game. I had no less than 10 people saying that we missed the game of the year between you and Corona. It was a shootout, I heard. Well, that is going to go down so far as the legendary game that no one got to see.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like, whoever scored last was going to win. And unfortunately, we, missed a few opportunities here and there. But, yeah, it was definitely an exciting game. We our kids played hard, and that game, even though it was a loss, and you don't want to lose ever, we kind of showed some grit, some that we're going to battle through adversity in that game. So hopefully, losing a game like that in the preseason is going to help us out the next time we're in a situation like that or a game like that.
Well, it's nice that everybody was talking about that game, and a lot of people were talking and said, hey, Hillcrest is the real deal going into defending the River Valley League Championship. But let's talk about Patriot. You play them on Friday night. What have you seen on tape from them, and what surprises you about them?
Nothing, really surprised me about them. We've been kind of collecting tape on them as we're getting ready for this matchup. They got, a really, really strong running back. That's a super tough kid. He's been playing with a cast on. He's got it padded up, and you would think that affect him a little bit. But he definitely runs hard. Their offensive line is big and tough and physical. So they've definitely gotten, got a good group of kids kind of that, they've been playing hard. And, they're 2-3 just like us. But I think, they got a good football team and a good coaching staff. And it's going to be a battle. And, whatever team shows up to play is going to be the one that comes out on top. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Well, Coach, you guys have a pretty good skilled guys on the offensive side of the football. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those guys? I know you got a quarterback that's kind of coming into his own. You've got some pretty good receivers. I know you like to run the spread. You run all kinds of different things to get your guys the ball. But can you tell us a little bit about your offense and some of the guys that have really achieved success here early on for you?
Yeah, well, we got some good-looking skilled kids, but I'm really excited about our offensive line. We're starting a sophomore at center, Christian Benitez. We got 2 juniors at guard, Jacob Hernandez and Daniel Smith. Luis Rodriguez at left tackle, Isaac Antolin at right tackle, and the 5 of those kids, kind of not a senior in the group, but they've been playing really well coming into league. They've been able to keep our quarterback upright and make some holes for our running back. So, but our kind of the biggest weapon we've had offensively, kind of surprised some people, is Daniel Deanda, who for a while was just our kicker and punter. We always knew he was athletic, plays soccer, just wasn't always kind of a football first type of guy. He just kind of came out and kicked, and we finally said, hey, let's start using him more at receiver, and probably should have done it a long time ago because he's out there making some plays.
Get out of here. I love kickers. Kickers are the best guys in the world. In fact, I think you and I talked before the first game, and he made a couple tackles. And, boy, I'm telling you, the kickers are in abundance. You have the RCC kid kicked a 58-yard field goal the other day. So I am all in for the kickers. Give them all their due and respect. Turn them into receivers. Get them some scoring.
Yeah, get them on the field.
You got to love it. Well, Coach, thank you again for joining us. We're looking forward to Friday Night Lights as you guys are going to start River Valley League play. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and good luck this week on Riverside TV.
Hey, appreciate it, Jeff. Good luck. See you Friday.
He is Travis Carter. I'm Jeff Gorham, and we're going to be right back with our friend Pep Fernandez and the top 5 and more on Riverside TV. And welcome back to the Coach's Perspective. It's my favorite part of the show. I get to see my guy, my confidant, my brother from another mother. He's Pep Fernandez. Pep, how are you, buddy?
Jeff, what is up, man? I dressed up for you again, but I'm out amongst the people today. The fine people of Riverside. It's a beautiful day. I want to talk football. I'm actually on the campus of Riverside City College right now, trying to tap into the pulse of Tiger Nation after that tough loss. Jeff, I think you were on the call on Saturday against Golden West.
I'm still crying over that loss because I'll tell you, I have not seen RCC ever lose. I've been covering them now for 3 years. They haven't lost since I've covered them. They lose to Golden West. They lose to our guy who was the quarterback at Centennial, Retzloff. I'm kind of mad at him just because he beat us. But, man, what a tough loss. But what a beautiful background. It looks like you're literally in the botanical gardens of the world, or the Garden of Eden.
Listen, you know what? It's a beautiful day out. We're talking Riverside football, and we've got so many great football teams this year at the high school level, Jeff, and I know we're going to dig into the rankings here. But yeah, man, what a great time of the year, especially when the teams are playing well and we've got local teams doing really, really well.
Yeah, let's talk, before we get into the rankings, let's talk about how good the River Valley League looks this year. I mean, we've got Hillcrest, we've got Ramona, we've got Norte Vista, we've got Patriot. There's some pretty darn good teams in this conference, and we're going to have a league play starting on Friday.
Yeah, league play is here. Week 6 of the high school football season. League play is here. And, traditionally, at least going back maybe the last 4 or 5 years at least, it's been Norte Vista and Hillcrest, right? Like battling to the end for that River Valley League championship. But, Jeff, as we'll get into it, man, Ramona, you got to take the Rams seriously. These guys are really, really good. And, I think that the River Valley League is going to be real top-heavy. I think we got some really good teams at the top, and those games are going to be some great games.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to have the first of the opener. We're going to have Hillcrest versus Patriot on game 1 on Friday night. We're going to have a doubleheader. I'm going to be on the call with Trent Rush on the other game, which is Citrus Hill versus Poly. So a couple good games on the for a doubleheader on Friday night. But let's talk a little bit about that Poly Citrus Hill game. Poly, who's had an up and down season, very young team, playing a Citrus Hill team, which who knew out of nowhere they weren't going to be as good as we thought. I mean, they've been a powerhouse for 20 years, for gosh sakes.
Yeah, I mean, what was it, 3 or 4 CIF championships, a state championship? I mean, Citrus Hill has done it all. And for them to fall off a cliff this year, they've dropped off considerably. In fact, I saw them, I think it was against Shadow Hills of Indio, and Citrus Hill has just really struggled against everybody they've played. In fact, they got blown out by Redlands High School, and we just saw on Riverside TV this last week that Norte Vista was able to beat Redlands 21-0, if you want to try to put that in perspective. So for Riverside Poly, this is a game they should win. And this is, while everyone is going into league play, this is not a league game for Riverside Poly. Citrus Hill's in the Mountain Pass, so this is another game for Riverside Poly to kind of maybe get things cleaned up, dialed in before you get to Inland Valley League play. So I like the Bears in this one.
I do too, and I like the crossover. The same conference, they're just crossing over a couple teams. It's kind of great for the sport. I think it's great for the Inland Empire as well.
Yeah, and for Riverside Poly, again, it's another chance to kind of, iron sharpens iron, right? Get out there, clean some things up, get better, because in their league, they will play some pretty good teams. Moreno Valley's in their league, Vista del Lago's in their league. I know coming up on a Saturday night, I think it's a Riverside TV game. It's Saturday night against Canyon Springs, and Canyon Springs has raced out to a 3-1 start. They've got some big wins under their belt, including last week against Arlington. So Canyon Springs has improved. So all of a sudden, the Inland Valley League looks pretty good right now with some good teams.
Yeah, and even Lakeside. Lakeside's much improved over the last couple of years. So, yeah, it's going to be a daunting task for Poly, but I think they're right in the middle of this, and I think they can improve and possibly make some waves in that conference.
Yeah, I think every single game is going to be close. I think there's going to be a lot of really close games, and we might see a league champion that has one loss, I think they're going to take turns maybe beating each other up a little bit.
Exactly. Well, let's get into the rankings. The Inland Sports rankings that we put into the computer over the weekend, and it spit out a new top 5, Pep. And I'll tell you, let's start with the top. John W. North stays at number 1. They have a tough game this week versus Orange Vista. How do you see that playing out?
The toughest. I mean, that is probably their toughest game on their entire schedule. Definitely their toughest in league play against Orange Vista. The Coyotes are really good. They've got a great quarterback, running back, and receiver, kind of the big 3. But you could say the same thing for the Huskies. In fact, you could probably say they have a big 4 because they got Hassan Elliott and Venancio Micaele right in the backfield. You've got Asher Granger. You've got Jaden Gamble. They kind of have like a big 4. Remember, Jeff, you're old enough to remember the Dallas Cowboys had the triplets, the big 3, right? Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith, Michael Irvin, your quarterback, running back, receiver. North has that +1. I mean, they're that loaded, and I like North in this game, but I think Orange Vista is going to give them maybe their biggest challenge to date.
Yeah, we talk about the offense, but the the defense attorneys of the defense of John W. North, I think that is I've told you this, I think they're the best defense I've seen in Riverside, and I think defensively they could go against anybody in the Big 8, and I think they would be great. I'd love to see a Norco North matchup at some point. I know it couldn't happen unless it's fantasy, but I think they are playing at that level right now.
And defense wins championships, right? You can score all the points in the world, but if you can't stop the other team, you're going to be in every single game. Like every game's going to be close. But if you can stop the other team, you're going to have a chance to win. And I always hang my hat on the defense. If I had to pick, a team that's great on defense to win a CIF championship or a team that's great on offense, I go with the defense every time. So if North is, that good on the defensive side of the football, they're going to score points. If the defense is, holding their weight, man, they're going to be really good.
So they stay pat at number 1, but we do have a number 2 that has changed. Last week, North Vista filled that number 2 spot. The Inland Sports Show doesn't lie, buddy. This is what happens when Ramona continues to take care of business. They took care of another Big 8 team, which they've taken care of 2 Big 8 teams this year, and they're playing really, really good football.
Jeff, I was going to yell, how dare you take Norte Vista out of that number 2 spot? But really, I can't argue against it at this point because Ramona has looked so good. They've beaten King High School. They've beaten Corona, and King and Corona from the Big 8 League are actually pretty good. They're decent teams. Those are really good wins. And I think if Norte Vista would have beat Redlands by a larger margin, they would have stayed at number 2, but they kind of struggled with the Terriers a little bit. And we've talked about Redlands before. They're way down this year. In fact, they're probably going to finish in last place in the Citrus Belt League. So if Norte Vista would have looked strong against Redlands, Braves are number 2, no doubt, but Ramona would have been, right on their heels. But because Ramona picked up a huge win against Ron Garinger and Corona, and Novi kind of, sluggishly beat the Terriers, I can't argue against the computer, man. I put Ramona at number 2 for now.
Yeah, and let's delve a little bit deeper. Coach Mush, he's come in. He took him to a CIF championship game. They lost, but they've continued to get better and better and better each year, and it's all buy-in. The kids really feel like they can win ball games, and it shows.
Yeah, I think I've brought this up every single time we've done this, Jeff, is the fact that going back to 2019, our last real high school football season, they went to a CIF championship game. And, I don't know what the message is to the guys. I'm not inside that Ramona locker room each and every week, but I have the feeling it's, hey, guys, we've been to a CIF championship game, the last couple of years. That's the expectation now. Like, we're not here to just maybe finish second or third in league. No, we want to win league. And we're going to make a deep, deep run in CIF and maybe hang a championship banner, at the end of the season. So I just feel like the standard is different. And we talk about culture, and I know it sounds cliche and, like that's a coach talk, right? Like that's what you're supposed to say. Hey, we're going to win every game, or we're going to win, a CIF championship. But at Ramona, they really mean it. Like that's really the message at Ram High. They're that good now.
Yeah, they are, and I'll tell you, it's palpable. You go to the games, you go around, everybody's talking Ram High football. But let's go to number 3. I'm probably going to get a lot of things thrown at me when I go back to school tomorrow at Norte Vista, but the Braves come in at number 3 this week on the Inland Sports Top 5. What do you say about Novi?
Jeff, having Norte Vista at number 3, it feels wrong, right? Because they've done everything they were supposed to. Every team they've put in front of them, they've beaten. But because Ramona has looked so dominant, and I think the competition that Ramona has beaten is better than Novi. And it's not the Braves' fault. Like we were just talking about Redlands. Redlands is way down this year. Novi still beat them like they were supposed to. But again, Ramona beating, I think, better competition and scoring a lot of points. It's hard to argue against Ramona at number 2. And it's almost like a 2A and a 2B with Ramona and Norte Vista. I think it's really just setting up this huge game when the Rams and Braves play each other.
Yeah, in fact, Novi's defense has been solid all season long. But when was the last time we said we kind of questioned the offense of Norte Vista? They're used to getting, averaging 40-plus points per game. They only put up 7 against Claremont and 21 versus Redlands. That's the question mark, and that's the first time we've had to say that in a Ken Batdorf team.
You just hit the nail on the head. That's the difference here. Yeah, their defense has been great. A couple shutouts, under their belt this season. But the offense is going to have to score more points, as we get through league play and get a little bit closer to playoffs, especially leading into that Ramona game. Because if they fight fire with fire, if this gets into a shootout between the Rams and the Braves, well, you already know who that's going to favor. We've seen Ramona score a ton of points already this season. If Novi's offense would have performed a little bit better through the first couple weeks of the season, maybe they would still be number 2 today.
I agree. Well, let's drop down to number 4, and that is Martin Luther King. They're playing pretty darn good. Coach McMahon's got the job late, but they seem to have really kind of bought into what he's doing, and the ball is rolling in their favor.
Yeah, and they're coming off a tough loss. I think it was against Silverado to wrap up non-league play, and for the King Wolves, I think it's really important that they kind of built some confidence and some team identity in the non-league portion of their season. Even though Coach McMahon's, got onto the scene pretty late in the game, just several weeks before the season kicked off. Because, Jeff, we know this. When you get to Big 8 league play, they are going to be in a battle every single night. Even throw out Centennial and Norco, which are kind of living on a different planet at this point in terms of high school football. But Santiago, or I should say Santiago, Roosevelt, Corona. I mean, those are all going to be, I think, close competitive games. I mean, King could finish, third place in the Big 8 League, or they could finish in last place in the Big 8 League. I think every one of those games is going to be very, very close in Big 8 League play. And I'm just glad that King had some success in non-league action to, again, build that team's chemistry, get a little momentum, build some confidence. I just wish they would have won last week because I would have felt better about them going into the league season.
I agree. And rounding out the top 5 is a team we have on Friday night, and that's the Hillcrest Trojans. Travis Carter just does what he does. He wins ball games with young guys. Great coach. What do you think about Hillcrest?
Yeah, we've mentioned this before here on Riverside TV, the fact that the deeper we get into the season, Hillcrest will get better because the young guys are just getting more and more experience under their belt. So this team that we saw, for Hillcrest in the first game of the season, I think is going to look a lot different than what we see in week 10. And, if they finish high enough in River Valley League play and get to the playoffs, I think there's a lot of transformation. I think they're, evolving and growing right in front of our very eyes. So this Hillcrest team, I think, will be more dangerous by the end of the season than compared to when we kick things off in August.
And remember, they do end the season versus Norte Vista on that neutral site, I should say, at Novi's Zachert Stadium. But that will be a game we could circle later on down the line.
Yeah, that could be, Jeff, either the league championship game or, dare I say, maybe the second place game. I don't know. I'm not trying to say Ramona's your champion. I'm not trying to crown him on this show today. But, yeah, I think that game's going to be huge regardless of if it's a first or a second, whatever whatever might be on the line in that final game of the season.
Well, that is our Inland Sports City of Riverside top 5. Make sure you watch Pep, and if you don't, you're a dummy. I'm going to be honest. You're a straight dummy. You got to watch the Inland Sports Show on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. and then on Friday nights about 11:15-ish from the stately Fernandez Manor. We have Sports Weekly Live. And I think I gave you a little bit of a hard time this past week. I was on the comments. I was roasting you guys.
Well, I know my wife had to tell me because I'm directing and, rolling video and I'm trying to talk and sound smart and all those things. And my wife's like, man, Jeff is really blowing up that live chat. I'm like, whoa, Jeff, it's late. Calm down. I know you had a great game on Riverside TV. Just calm down.
Well, the one thing I was a little disappointed in, we can kind of pull back for the viewers, is I offered your daughters $20 if they could bring up a highlighter. That's an inside joke between you and I. But I would offer $20 if I saw a highlighter or you pulled on your ear during the broadcast. And neither one of your daughters bought on it. I had $20 ready for them. I was going to pay you tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if they were awake. And if they were awake, I thought they would take the money, to be honest.
Well, either way, your wife should have, for gosh sakes. It would have been $20. You could have taken her out.
Yeah, I could have got a coffee, something, a sandwich.
Well, make sure you check out Pep Fernandez every Wednesday and every Friday night. He's the best guy in the entire business and one of my best friends in the world. I love you, Pep.
That's true, too.
And it's true. Yes. Pep, thank you as always, and we'll see you Wednesday and Friday night.
You got it, brother.
All right, he's Pep Fernandez. I'm Jeff Gorham, and this has been The Coach's Perspective here on Riverside TV. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you Friday night at the football games. Good night, everybody.